The SpongeBob reference episode has become an infamous staple of the series. You take a classic single-episode character or concept, and then you make a new episode based around it, with the hope being that it gets the attention of fans who remember the original episode. I have long since cracked the code as to why reference episodes fail, and it's because the team behind the show misunderstands why things like Nosferatu, the Imagination Box, and Doodle Bob worked in the first place, which was how they interacted with the well-written story they took place within. These things just kinda existing in a poorly written episode doesn't recapture the good writing that their original episodes had. But of how bad modern SpongeBob's reference episodes have been, this one, Whatever Happened to Baby Prunes, I think might actually be the worst reference episode ever put out by the show. Let's find out why. Chapter 1. Unnamed chocolate-hating old lady. So let's get into who this character is, where she originated, why she was so memorable, and why she should have never returned. While this character is now named Baby Prunes, and we will get into the problems with that a little later, back in the episode she first appeared in, Chocolate with Nuts, she was not referred to by name, leaving many fans to refer to her simply as Chocolate Lady. To be honest, Chocolate Lady isn't even the funniest joke in Chocolate with Nuts. I can think of 5 funnier jokes off the top of my head. In fact, here they are. There's the joke where Patrick says, "This guy has shoes," when pointing at the super rich guy in the picture. The joke where the con man rips them off twice in a row with candy bar carrying bags and candy bar bag carrying bags. The joke where SpongeBob tells Patrick to flatter the customer and he immediately says, "I love you." The joke where the guy says he won't buy chocolate because it made him fat as a kid, and then Patrick, without hesitation, buys multiple copies of the photo. Those 2 jokes were in the same scene, by the way. And the joke where Patrick says the chocolate will keep your face from getting any uglier, and the next shot reveals he's talking to a guy who looks exactly like him. By the way, this is not to say that the Chocolate Lady is not a funny gag. It absolutely is. I only bring this up to demonstrate that Chocolate with Nuts is such a funny episode that Chocolate Lady doesn't even crack the top 5 best jokes. However, because Chocolate Lady is tied to an extremely memorable character design, her joke is the one that ends up getting stretched into multiple references and even 2 full episodes in modern SpongeBob. So Chocolate Lady only has about 1 minute of screen time across 2 scenes in the episode. So unlike a character like Bubble Buddy, who is the focus of an entire episode, she is more like Nosferatu, being that the joke that her character was created to tell is just 1 moment that contributes to a broader story. Chocolate with Nuts opens on SpongeBob accidentally getting Squidward's Fancy Living Digest in his mail, which causes him and Patrick to want to be rich like the people in the magazine. What I appreciate about this opening is that it does such a good job of making what would usually be a shallow motivation seem so genuine and innocent. SpongeBob and Patrick don't want to be rich because they're greedy, they just got swept up in the excitement of the idea of fancy living, which is something anyone can relate to. The method by which SpongeBob and Patrick attempt to strike it rich also endears us to them as characters as they go door to door selling chocolate bars. The bulk of the episode's bits revolve around SpongeBob and Patrick either encountering a strange customer or them acting strange to a normal customer. Every joke in the episode is enhanced by the fact that in the first minute or so of the episode, we are introduced to these characters and shown why they want to succeed at their goal. The Chocolate Lady appears in a scene after SpongeBob and Patrick's low point in the story, where they feel like they failed as chocolate bar entrepreneurs. After realizing that most other entrepreneurs stretch the truth, SpongeBob realizes that if they lie too, they will sell more chocolate bars. Before the next customer, SpongeBob instructs Patrick that their game plan is for him to flatter the customer before Patrick comes in for the kill. The kill. When an old lady answers the door, SpongeBob says in a flattering tone,
"We're selling chocolate. Is your mother home?"
with the intention of the compliment being that this clearly old woman looks young enough for her mother to still be alive. The subversion of this interaction is that the old woman's mother is in fact alive, and she looks like this. The reason this joke works is that it throws off SpongeBob's power in the situation. What was supposed to be the thing that gives SpongeBob power in the situation, the flattery, has now caused a more unruly person to enter the scene and to make matters worse. This new party SpongeBob has unwittingly brought into the situation also hates chocolate.
I remember when they first invented chocolate. I always hated it.
This makes the whole situation so much funnier because not only were we not expecting this old woman to have a living mother, but she also hates chocolate. And so few people hate chocolate, so that's weird. And by the way, the fact that this old lady hates chocolate for no reason other than she just kinda does makes this moment funnier because it feeds into her being an irrational character, which in turn makes the whole situation seem insurmountable to our protagonists. And in a comedy, the more sticky the situation the characters are in, the funnier that situation is. So in the wake of all these unexpected alive mothers, old lady bickering, and irrational chocolate hating, the audience has probably already forgotten about SpongeBob's instruction for Patrick to come in for the kill at the beginning of the scene, which is what leads to the climax of the bit.
You rub it on your skin and it makes you live forever.
Live forever, you say? I'll take one.
So even with all the things working against SpongeBob, like the mother being alive and her irrationally hating chocolate, they are still able to succeed in the situation due to the power of dishonesty. What an incredible way to teach a lesson about how powerful lying is. So this sets up SpongeBob and Patrick lying all over town and selling all of their chocolate, only to fall victim to a bigger liar, the con artist. This succeeds at teaching the lesson that lying is wrong, by basically saying, how would you like it if someone tricked you? Then SpongeBob and Patrick get to win in the end because the guy who has been running around yelling, "Chocolate!" ends up buying all the chocolate, teaching the lesson that hard, honest work will actually be the thing that pays off, and that in business, you make most of your money off of the people who are the most fanatic about your product. Speaking of which, if anyone here is a fanatic of my content, consider checking out my Patreon or my channel memberships. Look, you get to get your name up here. Also, thanks to everyone whose name is up here. Anyway, the chocolate lady appears one more time in the episode when SpongeBob and Patrick finally get to do the fancy thing they desired at the beginning of the episode and go out to a nice restaurant with their dates, the two old ladies. You know, I wish I had some kind of deep analysis of why this ending joke is funny, but no, it's funny for the exact reason you think it is. It's silly that they're on a date with two old ladies, and it's even funnier because it's a payoff from earlier in the episode. What can I say? Sometimes jokes are simple. So here's the thing about Chocolate Lady, and it's the same thing that I have to say about Nosferatu and Bubble Buddy. When it comes to these characters, the reveal of their existence, or in the case of Bubble Buddy, the reveal of his sentience, is the entire point of their existence. Nosferatu was actually the one flickering the lights. That reveal is the joke. Bubble Buddy was actually alive the whole time. That reveal concludes the story. This old lady's mother is actually alive. That reveal escalates the conflict of the scene. What these three things have in common is that after their reveal, there really is no reason for them to actually exist further. You can only reveal something once, you can't unreveal it. The reason that these characters work in their original episodes is that those original episodes exist in a world where, from the audience's perspective, these characters did not exist, and the misdirection that they actually did exist is what made them memorable in the first place. If you now place them in an environment where there was never a question of their existence, and the world they inhabit just takes for granted that they do exist, it doesn't improve the story for anyone. If you've never seen these characters before, you'll just be confused, like, why is there a black and white vampire? Why is there a bubble person? Why is there a weird worm-looking skeleton thing? And if you get the reference and have seen the episode before, you're just like, well, you're not succeeding at telling any sort of new joke with these characters because the only joke you could possibly tell with these characters relies on misdirection, which you cannot do twice. It's for this reason that the SpongeBob writer should have taken the Chocolate Lady and let it rest, which is a storytelling term I came up with back in my Nosferatu video that refers to what I think writers should do when they recognize that something they created previously is really popular and they feel tempted to bring it back for no other reason than to try and cynically capitalize on the original thing's popularity. I think it takes a lot of integrity and shows a lot of understanding of storytelling to look at something like Nosferatu or Bubble Buddy or the Chocolate Lady and just go, you know what? We did it and it was great, but there's no doing it again. Of course, this is modern SpongeBob we're talking about, so let's get into how they brought the Chocolate Lady back. Chapter 2, Baby Prunes. So, Chocolate Lady started to appear in modern SpongeBob around the same time that they started to capitalize on referencing other characters. In fact, her first appearance in modern SpongeBob is in the episode Ink Lemonade, which is paired with My Leg, another episode that's cynically capitalizing on something popular from the classic episodes. Though, unlike my legs, she just kind of has a cameo in the background and isn't the focus of the whole episode. Beyond that, you got some other times where she appears in the background, or moments where she's focused on as just a go-to old person character. Moments like these should either just not have her in the background at all, or replace her with a different old person incidental. But if this was the only way they brought back the character, I probably would complain about it in passing, but it certainly wouldn't have warranted an entire video. The first episode that focused entirely on Baby Prunes was the episode Biddy Sitting, which is an episode about SpongeBob and Patrick starting a babysitting business. So remember how I said that in Chocolate with Nuts, the episode did a really good job at setting up why we should care about SpongeBob and Patrick's motivation for selling chocolate bars? Biddy Sitting just has them suddenly have a babysitting business, and we should care about that because they're the main characters. Just kind of entitled, I'm a bit insulted. Chocolate with Nuts did all this work endearing us to SpongeBob and Patrick in the first minute, and Biddy Sitting has the audacity to just have a bunch of random obnoxious slapstick. And what? That's it? Now I should care? What a slap in the face to your audience. Anyway, the bulk of the jokes in this episode are torturing an elderly disabled person. Again, let's just consider for a moment all of the things that Chocolate with Nuts did to earn your laughter. Now compare that to, haha, old lady with no limbs is screaming. I'm sorry, I just think that we as a population are better than this when it comes to creating art, and that stories like Chocolate with Nuts should exist, and stories like this should not, because they provide no substance, no goodness, no introspection. And they only serve to take up space so that there's less room for real stories. And by the way, this is the better of the two modern episodes I'm criticizing in this video. So Biddy Buddies also does that annoying trope I hate where you take someone like an old person or a baby or a small animal, in this case an old person, and have them do super badass stuff. Wow, this old lady can surf on lava and beat people up. Get it? Because old people are usually quite frail. And I don't know, I just can't imagine making a show and pitching this as a direction for the story to go in. Do you not know that this has been done before? Do you not realize that what you are presenting to the audience has just about nothing new to offer? And even if it wasn't unoriginal, even if you were the first person to ever come up with this bit, it's still not clever. You expect one thing, but it's actually opposite thing. If you look at the landscape of what sort of brilliant observations the arts and more specifically comedy has been able to offer us, what if thing is actually opposite thing doesn't really have a meaningful place at the table, if you ask me. All right, let's talk about the name Baby Prunes. So the origin of the name is actually contradicted between this episode and the next one I'm going to talk about. In Biddy Buddies, SpongeBob and Patrick name her Baby Prunes because they think she's a baby and she looks like a prune. But in Whatever Happened to Baby Prunes, it was her stage name back in the olden days. And you could write this off by saying continuity doesn't matter in SpongeBob. But isn't the point of a backstory episode like Whatever Happened to Baby Prunes to acknowledge continuity? If you don't care about continuity in SpongeBob, why do you care what happens in this flashback episode? It could all get undone next season when they do an episode where they reveal Baby Prunes actually created the Krabby Patty secret formula at Camp Coral while watching the Patrick Star Show with both King Neptunes and King Poseidon and mess up all the continuity again. Chapter 3, SpongeBob Midi-chlorians. So the purpose of the episode, Whatever Happened to Baby Prunes, is to explain why Baby Prunes hates chocolate. It's because when she was a child star, she was the face of advertising a prune candy, and when chocolate was invented, her candy wasn't popular anymore, so she hates chocolate out of personal jealousy. In order to understand why this is such a dumb idea for an episode of SpongeBob, we need to talk about a phenomenon I like to call SpongeBob midi-chlorians. So in case you didn't know, midi-chlorians are a concept introduced in Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace, where Qui-Gon Jinn checks young Anakin Skywalker's blood for a midi-chlorian count, which is over 20,000 and more than Master Yoda's. Later on, Anakin asks what midi-chlorians are, and Qui-Gon tells him that midi-chlorians live in all cells and tell us something about the Force. Now, the common complaint about midi-chlorians is that they remove some of the mysticism from the Force, and while that isn't completely wrong, I would say that my issue with midi-chlorians is just that they are redundant and seek to add a detail where it need not be added. So okay, midi-chlorians are not the Force itself. they just tell us the will of the Force. But don't Jedi already interpret the will of the Force just kind of on their own because they're Jedi? All it does is give Jedi power levels some sort of objective number, but knowing these sorts of objective numbers doesn't enhance our experience of the characters, and in some ways could take something away from it. Saying something like, the Force is strong with this one, already implies that said character is inherently more powerful than others. But it's vague. It leaves a lot of room for interpretation. Whereas he has more midi-chlorians than Yoda doesn't really give the audience a whole lot to think about. The chocolate lady is the same problem. Her hating chocolate for no reason is vague and leaves a lot of room for interpretation. And because it's not too deeply focused on in the scene itself, it's funnier and more interesting because it revolves around the characters dealing with the problem of her hating chocolate, rather than getting bogged down with the details of why. Her hating chocolate because of some jealousy over a business deal doesn't really give the audience a whole lot to think about. It's just redundant and adds a detail that need not be added. And this also applies to the other reference episodes. We don't need to know that Nosferatu lives in some castle. We don't need to know that Fred the My Leg guy breaks his leg on purpose because he's in love with a nurse at the hospital. We don't need to know that Bubble Buddy lives in a bubble town with other bubble people. We don't need to know that SpongeBob, Squidward, and Patrick's houses come to life when they aren't there. We don't need to know that the imagination box actually has a secret compartment for magic. I think I hate that SpongeBob midichlorian the most. These redundant, pointless details actively take away from the story, just like midichlorians do. By the way, guys, if you really like my Star Wars analysis, just want to quickly announce my new Star Wars related podcast I'm starting with my brother, who's like a major Star Wars expert. So we're gonna go through all 9 movies and break down the story, the lore, pretty much everything. Our first episode on Phantom Menace is already out. You should totally go check it out right after this video. But why Baby Prunes hates chocolate is not the only instance of SpongeBob midichlorians in this episode. We also learn why she looks like that. So I'm not the first person to point out why it's a dumb writing choice to have Baby Prunes look like this because she threw up candy and turned inside out. A goldfish could have figured out that the reason she looks like that is because she's comically old, and that it didn't need any further explanation than that. But I think what bugged me more than this unnecessary reveal is that she looked all weird even when she was young. Like, she was always this little twig fish. The point is that she was a normal looking person, and then she got all shriveled up in her advanced age. That's why the initial reveal in Chocolate with Nuts is funny. I actually cannot wrap my head around how the people who made this show could sit there with a straight face and make these decisions that are just so bafflingly bad. Like, no one in the room said, actually, the joke is that she's old and shriveled, so she wouldn't have looked like that as a kid. Literally no one. I wonder if they thought maybe like that was part of the joke, like this is some kind of subversion of expectations? I really don't know. These writers must have had like 50,000 bad writing midichlorians or something. Chapter 4. Oh yeah, the episode is also terrible. Whatever happens to Baby Prunes just has nothing going for it. I don't just dislike it because it messes up some 1-minute scene of a SpongeBob episode I watched when I was 5 years old. It's overall just a slow, meandering mess of an episode. Baby Prunes is a completely unlikable character. We are given no reason to care about her backstory, and we are given no reason to root for her. Her whole thing is she knocked over other dancers, and then she got super popular, and when she's no longer popular because of the existence of chocolate, we're supposed to care about that? Well, you didn't do the work to make me care about that. So I don't. You know, I clowned on how the writers could go back and watch Chocolate with Nuts and not understand that the joke of the chocolate lady is that she's a shriveled up old lady rather than a fish who just looks like that. But really, you have to be just as blind to watch Chocolate with Nuts and not understand that an episode like Whatever Happened to Baby Prunes has just about none of the writing elements that made that original episode work. The giving of a meaningful motivation, the making us care about that motivation, having a series of bits that work because that motivation is established, showing the characters' struggle, showing us why the characters make the mistakes they do, teaching the characters a lesson, having them win in a satisfying way. All of these things are present in Chocolate with Nuts, and none of them are present in Whatever Happened to Baby Prunes. So really, SpongeBob writers, if you want to look to your past to find something to bring back that audiences would clamor for, it's not the Chocolate Lady or Nosferatu or the Salty Spittoon or the Imagination Box or Rock Bottom or Bubble Buddy or SpongeGar or My Leg or the Gorilla Suit Guy or Plankton's Family or Handsome Squidward or the Chrome Future from SB129 or place your bets on what they're gonna do next season. My money's on Magic Conch. It's not any of these surface level wacky characters or concepts that your audience is looking for. It's the writing quality. It's the understanding of how character motivations can be communicated and how they enhance the comedy. That's it. And if you learn how to do that, you won't have to reference old moments anymore because you'll be able to create new ones. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Again, I'm going to recommend our new podcast where we dive deep into Star Wars. It's going to be a lot of fun. You should really check it out. Or if you want to see some more SpongeBob content, I recently made my first SpongeBob theory about Patrick's Twinkle Twinkle Patrick Star song. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next time.